Welcome to Deep Look, Ultiworld's weekly radio show about the current state of Ultimate. I'm the host and the editor, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me is Ultiworld senior editor, Keith Raynor. And Keith, I'm wondering, did you do today's Wordle?
I did. And in fact, so we at Ultiworld have been on the Wordle train for a little while, like maybe slightly ahead of its meteoric rise, like days ahead of it. I kid you not. As somebody brought this to our attention, one of our editors, Steve, is like, "Hey, I know someone who created this game. It's fun. Like, do you want to play?" We're obviously all word nerds here, so we now have within our Discord a Wordle thread where we share our results every day, and we score ourselves with a golf type scoring system where 4 guesses is par. If you get it on the 4th guess, it's par. So I've turned in back-to-back birdies, right? Would that be a 3 as a birdie?
It would be.
Yeah. Okay. So back-to-back birdies, and I had been on a cold streak before that. So I'm glad to be back on the right side of things. So yes, I did do my Wordle today, and I hit it in 3.
Today's answer, I'm gonna spoiler it right now.
Whoa!
Was, quote, low 7 figures. So I would dare spoil the Wordle. The Josh Wardle, and you heard that correctly, Wardle, Wardle, who created this game. Of course, it's been a bonanza. It's been an absolute bonanza. He is an Ultimate player. He used to play for Polar Bears and is friends with Steve, one of our editors here. So we got the early tip on Wordle. And I have since spread it to my New York Times mini crossword group text and the whole thing.
I mean, it's taken over the
it's
social
all over the
media
internet.
context.
I mean, there's been multiple articles about it, and I 3 weeks ago I said the New York Times is going to put this is going to buy this and put it in their games app. And
should have said it on the show.
I was right. I didn't say it publicly on the show. But I was right about this. And it was announced yesterday the New York Times is buying it for low 7 figures. So wait,
have you been playing Wordle this whole time?
I've been playing the whole time.
And you don't post in the Discord?
Sure. I'll hold up the screen. Let me make sure I won't spoiler. Hang on a second.
I'm just saying. I believe you.
I don't post in the Discord.
Come on, the whole staff is in here. And we're playing Team Wordle.
Not spoilerish enough to show. So I'm going to hold it up to the camera so you can see.
This is pure video content. You got to go to our YouTube channel to see this.
I got a birdie.
Okay.
I got a birdie. I've got 37 straight days. I think I did it I created the app on my home screen. So I'm missing a couple of my first plays. I probably played 40 plus days in a row now.
There's a slight spoiler visible in this, but
yeah,
if you're really a detective,
by the time the show comes out, it won't be a spoiler anymore.
That's true. And I, like you, I started out playing desktop, so my stats are not exact, but we even have somebody in the staff Discord who keeps track of all of our stats as like a group. So we have Saturdays where everybody posts their full stat sheet.
I just love the fact that this guy built a thing that he thought was cool, made no attempt to monetize it or make it spammy or anything. Doesn't want your email. You just show up, you play the game. And he's talked in interviews about how making it once a day was really the ticket because it was too boring if you could just play endlessly. And now he's going to make, who knows what, $2 million, $3 million selling to the New York Times. I mean, talk about, he nailed it, right? He sold it at the absolute peak. I feel like we are at peak Wordle, and I'm sure I'll continue to play Wordle, but it's going to die off, right?
Yes.
The New York Times just massively overpaid for
it's simply
app.
Not that deep a game for it to be interesting years from now. But also I think, if this thing is growing in size and popularity, there starts to become a potential demand on your time that you didn't anticipate when you're like, I'm just going to make this silly game to play with
the server costs alone.
Right. So now he gets to get out clean and be like, now this is not where the problems come. They're not mine. They're someone else's problems.
And get out clean. It's not like he just got out. He's freshly minted millionaire.
Yeah, I know. It's just the timing lines up for everything.
Amazing. Anyway, I'm still searching for the elusive ace, Keith. I hope Have you gotten one?
I've not. I believe there's one I think Alex Rubin got an ace in the staff Discord. We kind of talked about whether like is it like it's really just raw luck. There's nothing else to it. So in some ways, is getting it in 2 more impressive skill wise than an ace? I don't know, but there's nothing that you can't beat the magic of an ace. You just can't.
No, I mean, look, it's mostly a luck game.
Kind of, yeah.
I enjoy the challenge of when you have a bunch of letters and you cannot figure out what the hell the word is and like how to fit them together to make the next row. Because I play hard mode. I assume most people play hard mode. And you just got to sit there for 10 minutes sometimes and think about what the word is going to be.
It's tough, and we've all been in the trap where you are missing one letter, so you're like literally just guessing. That stinks.
Like 2 rounds left, and you're like, okay, there's 3 possible letters that could work here.
Yeah, it can be tricky, but it's a fun, simple game. I think I saw somebody had created a Lord of the Rings version that's just words from Lord of the Rings or something like that. So already there's
Monopoly where there's like 500 different spin-offs.
Yeah, I can't give us a tangent on this. Maybe I'll do it in the subscriber bonus segment. But I learned information about Monopoly and its original. The story of the origins of Monopoly were a lot more fascinating than I thought they were. So
it was a board. I believe I know what you're going to say. A board game designed to like show off the excesses of capitalism.
Yeah, it's like an anti-capitalist game invented by a woman. Who then was basically like forced out of the game, and they reinvented it as a like pro-capitalist game and sold it for a bunch of money. So it like also turned out to be an example of the evils of capitalism because they like coerced this woman into selling it for way less than it was worth, obviously. And then now her name is completely erased from it. She's not listed at all. In fact, I'm going to look up her name because it's not even fair to be a part of washing her off of it. Because Lizzie Maggie is her name, but it was Charles Darrow who's credited and made all the money off of this game, basically by ripping her off. So that's the story of Monopoly.
I did not know that. Monopoly, one of my favorite games.
I also grew up loving Monopoly.
It is looked down upon by board game people now because, like, for a number of reasons, I think.
Well, of course, the question is, do you auction, Charlie?
For my entire time growing up, never played auction. I think auction vastly improves the game and should be included. So yes, I play auction now.
There you go. Now you know you're a real Monopoly player. I have played auction very, very limitedly and only like in recent years, like you.
I'm a big backgammon player. Backgammon without the doubling cube is not nearly as good of a game. The doubling cube allows you to, increase the amount of points that you'll win from the game, essentially introducing a much more skill-based and kind of like decision-making based part of the game. That's what auction does for Monopoly, where it's like, well, if you want that Monopoly, you can bid up that auction and you can be willing to, pay $700 for Oriental, but is that worth it? That you have to make that decision on the trade-offs. Otherwise it's a little too luck-based. And then, of course, there's the whole trading element to the game, which I like. But I think you need auction to have it really function well as a game.
There you go. Charlie and I, we talk about food on the podcast a lot, but we do enjoy some games. Games. Yeah, I mean, just got the games on screen pretty much every episode.
Terraforming Mars for the first time. That's a fun one.
There you go. We have not played that yet. I mean, we played...
Keith, you're going to love it because it's a lot like DC Deck Builder.
Oh, man, we got to play. I'm dying to play DC again.
Way more depth. It's like, I've only played it once, and I felt like there were like almost indecipherable numbers of strategies available.
Love it.
Anyway, on we go to the show. First up, we have an interview with Bryce Merrill, who is the head coach of the BYU men's team. He's also one of the partners in the new AUDL Salt Lake team that's starting this year. He's coached at a ton of different levels. He was the head coach for the Utah Wild in the Western Ultimate League when they went down and won the Winter Cup. So tons to get to with Bryce. He's got a lot of great insight from coaching and youth development and the business side of the game. So looking forward to talking with him about that. And when we come back after the interview, we'll talk about the Santa Barbara Invite and upcoming Florida warm-up. So some college chatter coming your way. First up, Bryce Merrill with us next.
We've talked about Raleigh and the year they had in 2021 so much on the show. And now North Carolina Pro Ultimate and Triangle Ultimate are joining forces to bring you Carolina Ultimate Flight School Summer Camp 2022 on the campus of NC State in Raleigh. This Ultimate Frisbee Camp offers basic and advanced tactics that the Raleigh pros use to up their game every season. The Raleigh Flyers and Raleigh Radiants believe in furthering the development of Youth Ultimate to both grow the sport and prepare young players with the skills and athleticism they need to succeed on the field. And we certainly see how that's worked out for Raleigh. You'll learn from nationally renowned players and innovative coaches, including Matt Kuchahanis, Don Colton, Saul Yannick, Terrence Mitchell, Josh Hartzog, Alex Barnett, Seth Weaver, and many more. That's a big list. And as an added bonus, coaches David Allison and Mike DeNardis, who've won a lot of awards here at Ulti World, will be in attendance for special sessions. Now, you can use discount code UW Flight School for $50 off and sign up today. That's discount code UW Flight School for $50 off, and you can sign up at triangleultimate.org/CUFS.
Joining us now on Deep Look is Bryce Merrill, who is the head coach of the BYU men's team, a managing partner for the new forthcoming Salt Lake Shred, the AUDL team, player for the Killjoys, and developer of all things Ultimate in Utah. Bryce, it's great to have you on the show. Welcome.
Hey, glad to be here. Developer is probably too strong a word. I think there's about 500 other people that probably deserve more credit, but glad to do my part and glad to be here with y'all today.
So we got a lot to get to. I want to start with BYU because you just played this weekend, and then you get the short rest, and you're right back at it with games. It's like an NFL team that's got to play on Thursday. You turn around and you got games on Friday at warm up, going across to the other side of the country from California to Florida. So undefeated start for BYU at SBI. Some wins that I think are going to end up looking really good over Cal Poly SLO and Cal and UCLA. How was, coming back to the college game? And I know the games didn't exactly count in a meaningful sense, but that doesn't always matter that much for BYU anyway.
No, yeah. Everything's perception or everything's just good reps, but couldn't have been more excited. I mean, with how our team performed in what is essentially the first game in a couple of years. We knew the highs would be high. We also knew that there would be some deviations from the game plan or what we had coached. It's the first reps out there. And I think the other really exciting part was the talent of the teams we played. Really, really impressed with those California school squads that we played and just where they're at developmentally. So it was really exciting for us to get those quality reps and to have really talented opponents at that early in the season. So really just exciting all around for us. And like you said, we'll get to turn around and see what it looks like in 3 more days. So, we had a lot of rookies, I think 15 rookies on the team this year, and each of them stepped up and did exactly what they're supposed to do. Some of them are absolute stars already. And so just again, to see them out in the wild on the field, outside of practice, outside of scrimmaging ourselves again, and let them, basically get out there and play. But a lot of things went really, really well. And I think that was exciting for us.
Well, since you mentioned having a big rookie class, it has me curious. How many of these rookies are coming up through the increasingly well-known Utah area youth pipeline, and how many are fresh faces?
Great. Yeah. We have 29 players on the roster this year. 27 of them played in high school. 16 of those players were from the Utah high school scene. And so you look at the work that, the Sean Graffs and the Dave Krupas of the world are doing to develop this talent and this quality of player. It makes my job as a coach, A, really fun, and B, really easy. We have so many players coming in. I was talking to some of the guys in the car this week, driving to Santa Barbara, and they talked we didn't have a huge tryout group this year. We only had 50 or 55 players come out to the first tryout. What was neat, though, was that of those 55, I could have put 50 of them on the team.
Wow.
The quality that is coming out, they know that when you show up to a college tryout, they're not confusing it with intramurals or a social club. They know the team, they know what we're about, and they're showing up because they want to be an athlete that wants to compete for the team. And so that high school scene is sort of moving us to the next evolution of, I hope we can recruit some people and, show them that Frisbee football is a sport, or, whatever that we used to have to do on the quad. And instead, we have these players that played in high school. They want to play here. They have watched and followed the team and followed our rudimentary live streams and followed along on Twitter. They've got our camp t-shirts. And so they're showing up, knowing what we're about, and legitimately want to be on the team. So, again, so much of like our program consistency is credit to these high school coaches long before they ever step foot on campus. And we just hope that they want to come and can come to BYU. And then we want to get them into the system and into the team as quick as possible. So it's a neat sort of maturation of the program to not have to do some of that type of recruiting anymore and that type of development in our fall seasons.
You bring back a lot of top players from, past seasons, obviously former player of the year, Jordan Kerr, Joe Merrill, among a number of others. You also get a high-profile rookie in Porter Euler, who was kind of a breakout player in the club division, playing with the Killjoys this season. The thing I noticed, though, watching you play, is that the team's not quite as polished as we've seen in the last time we saw you at SBI, let's say. D-line offense a little bit rustier in terms of just offensive skill. Obviously the best team at the tournament still, but where do you feel like the team is developmentally? Obviously there's a ton of talent there, and you're able to even win games at times when like Jordan wasn't playing all that many points. But it's not quite the same level of dominance that we saw back in, I guess, 2019.
Yeah, and part of me wants to like hedge what I think about our team, and the other part of me wants to like bounce being their biggest hype person. I think this is the best version of the BYU team we've ever seen. And what I saw, because I saw the same things as you, we saw a couple of points in that slow game where I think there was like 37 turns, and all of them were just, the head scratching abysmal turns. But knowing what we've adapted to and how we've adapted, we lost Taylor Barton, Braden Eberhard, and Sean Knoll, three classic center handler type players. And so we adapted this team. We started the process sort of in the club season this last year in the early fall season, but we've adapted from a handler-driven team to a cutter continuation-driven team. And so it's the same offense, it's the same system, but it's definitely a new emphasis. And so we look from, hey, let's have Braden or T-Bar or Sean anchor their line and set the pace. And now we've said, okay, Porter Euler or Brandon Jordan or Chad Jorgensen, all playing their first collegiate game. BJ played, I think, in 2019 before his mission or something like that. But frankly, their first game. And so we're giving them the keys to the offense from on a point on the field where they have to make the right read and then move the disc correctly. So I would say the startup is going to be clunkier, but it will accelerate. And what I saw over the weekend from a coach, knowing what we've been doing, I'm very, very confident. And I firmly believe this is the best BYU team we've ever seen. And the athletic dominance feels like it's there. The schemes are closing in, and I think it will come together nicely.
Can you go undefeated at warm-up?
Yes.
You almost did it in 20.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. It doesn't mean it's automatic, but we don't have scheduled a team this talented doesn't have scheduled losses, doesn't have, we're going to just throw the lines out and see what happens. This is a team that can win any game at any time and also have 17 turns in 1 point. And so, if you have too many of those, we'll have a trouble. But yeah, again, I think the O-line got broke twice total the first 5 games that we played. So it wasn't the prettiest, but it's pretty dang consistent. If you're averaging, 0.4 breaks per game, that's usually a pretty good recipe that you're going to be successful. And that gives the defense a few chances to continue to work out some of those rough patches.
How do you feel like, we're in kind of an unusual time period. You have the games that aren't sanctioned. You have coming off of a season for some teams. You have the extended eligibility. I mean, all of these different things that are going on kind of combining to have an effect that's hard to measure on the division itself. Do you feel like that context is advantageous for your team, or is it a little more challenging and perhaps advantageous to teams that you're going to go up against?
Whew. I would say it's never been more asymmetrical from team to team. And so, you do have a Cal Poly Slow who looked way more refined than we were, but also like they're probably not tired, but you are lulling. You're intentionally allowing them to come down and roll into SBI, but also they probably spent a lot more time in polishing reps leading into December than we did, where we were still in the base training and the principle based coaching and all of that. Then you turn right around to another team that wasn't able to compete in the fall season. So they're in the exact same space as we are. And so I would say it's been interesting to like feel it out from game to game. I've always felt like, teams have unique perspectives or interests in playing us and how they approach it. And so, there's a couple things that I felt like, oh, we're definitely behind those other teams and those other programs. And then there's other things where I'm like, oh, we're hungry. They haven't played a sanctioned game in 2 years. These people, my people really just want to play. They want to get on the field. And so there's like a hunger or an excitement, that is palpable on our sideline versus the other one. So it really is sort of reading it out. And I would say, on like the technical side of games this weekend, we spent a little bit longer feeling the other team out. Normally after like 2-2, I feel like I can get a good read on how this team's going to go or what this game's going to look like. And I felt like that extended to 4-4 or 5-5 before we felt like we could, get our run or, sort of impose our will on the game and go from there.
The women's team was impressive this weekend as well. Every year I see them at SBI, they look better and better and better. And I think, they look like they're maybe a year or two away from being a top 10 team in the country. I mean, it's possible they'll be there this year, to be honest. Depends on how, what we see from the West Coast teams against other opponents later this year. And, we've talked about it many times before, but just kind of like current state of the, potential inclusion in postseason, with your team obviously looking like one of the best in the country per usual, and then the women's team continuing to increase. Do you have plans on trying to make a push for USAU to find a way to get you involved in the kind of the college nationals pipeline? Before
I take the second question, I just want to talk about our counterparts, the BYU women's team. I could not be more impressed with the product they're putting on the field right now and the way that they are training. Their coach, Kendra Miller, is someone that it has been a delight to coach adjacent to and learn from. Her approach to the game and especially like her approach to developing athletes and attracting athletes to the team. She's a former D1 track athlete, and the way she thinks and communicates and internalizes has been fascinating to watch and to learn from. I like to think that, having had a chance to coach her in women's club in the WUL, she's adapted some of maybe the technical stuff or the jargon that we use on the men's team, but absolutely like the presence and persona and the emphasis on athleticism. It's been fun to have a coach that I can like really look up to and emulate. And I see that in her athletes, some of these young players, and the ceiling is exciting for the Kai women's team right now. If I could make a plea to all of our tournament directors out there, and I know the state of women's college ultimate is tenuous with COVID. Keith, you've talked about this a lot, but as of today, I don't think our women's team has another tournament booked right now. They can't get the invites that the men's team can, despite the Sunday play. And so I'd ask any social cachet that I have, which I know can be limited, but we that team deserves a chance to play and needs to get out there and play. And so if you have a spot in your tournament, strongly consider bringing them. They are, like you said, this is a top 10, top 15, top 20 program. The Saturday reps are worth the headache of having to figure out your bracket on Sunday for your tournament to get them there. And so, that's my PSA for today, that the Kai women's team is ready to compete and they are very capable. The athletes are there. The system is there. The coaching is there. They just need a chance to get out there and show it. As for the Sunday thing, I don't know. I don't know what's left to be said. I don't know what's left to be done. We've tried, we've gone down that road, and it's been fun. I'll be honest, it's been fun and reassuring. We submitted some stuff years ago within the constraints of what USA Ultimate asked for, and it was unilaterally just not accepted, not deemed feasible or possible. But having watched the game adapt the last 5 years, there's a number of elements and suggestions that we made at that time that have been adopted elsewhere. You consider asymmetrical playoff formats, a reduction in the number of games that are optimal for a weekend. The move away from strictly everything is a bracket followed by a tournament, and starting to look at match play weekends built out over the course of a season can be really exciting. There's a number of things in there. I'm not saying I was right or I was some sort of someone who could predict the future, but I think we're seeing that as the game grows and the formats that are available change and adapt, maybe the dependency on the current tournament format goes to a place where there's an opportunity for meaningful competition. One of the things I coached in the WUL briefly this past season, for the Winter Cup. And what Felicia and the WUL staff have done, they have built the best format of ultimate event I have ever seen or participated in or experienced in. That Winter Cup format, the round robin play with the emphasis on spectator, but the rule set and all that, it's the best version of ultimate I've ever seen, hands down. And I see that and it's like, okay, what if you start to have a league within the regular season instead of just going to a series of tournaments? What if you create match play that has a regular season championship? What if you do that? Maybe BYU never ever plays at college nationals ever because it's a tournament format and it's on Sunday for semis or finals or whatever one it is. But maybe there's a path to meaningful inclusion to a more meaningful, regular season champion or a more meaningful series of match play events that leads to something. I don't know what it is. I think USA Ultimate's been pretty clear. They told me to stop asking, that they've already decided on it. And so to quit inquiring. And so, we want to respect that and work with them where we can. And we'll just continue to control what we can control and go from there. And again, you round out the emphasis, for the athletes that live in Utah, maybe there's a chance to compete now in the AUDL and the WUL and some club and some college. And maybe it's a more holistic, solution than just hoping that something changes at the collegiate level.
Really quick before Keith answers, I'll just say this because we're on the topic for a moment. I've said it before. I think that finding a solution for nationals is actually really not that hard. They can put a semis game on Monday morning before the finals in the afternoon. There's definitely ways to make it work if people wanted to make it work. I can't say it enough times. High School National Invite, a tournament that we co-run with Cut Camp, is Friday, Saturday, so that we can include the very good Utah teams that go to semifinals. And it's fine. People go because it's an important tournament, and people would go to regionals Friday, Saturday if there's ways to make it possible. So anyway, we don't have to go down this whole road again, but just want to put it for the record that I think it's a doable thing if people wanted to make it happen. Go ahead, Keith.
Well, without that typical marker of being a truly elite team, one of the things that fascinates me about the BYU programs is how you engender that buy-in from the players, especially when you're recruiting these new players. You talked about moving from Frisbee football on the quad to showing people, hey, well, this is a serious sport and we're a serious team. How do you measure yourselves and how do you demonstrate that when you're recruiting these new athletes? How do you say hey, we are one of the best teams in the country. Our goals are very high. Our standard is very high. How do you impart that to the players?
That's a great question. It's a tough sell, and it's something that we really tried to do. A part of it, people that want to come to BYU, they have the highest rate of accepting the offer to go there. So people that want to go to BYU want to go to BYU. And so, we have some, outside of our team structure, some things that say, they want that education or that's where they want to go. And, there's some opportunities there. B, one of the things that we talk to the athletes about is that the system has proved itself over the last decade. This is my 10th season coaching. And, early on there was, maybe a narrative that, oh, they're not actually that good. Teams don't try, or, without, steel sharpens steel. And so the bracket play, the postseason is where you get great. But I think if we weren't able to develop athletes to be very, very good, that would have played out by now, and we would start to lose ground, and we'd start to slip against other programs that just consistently get better that we can't compete with. And I think I've seen the exact opposite. We lost one game in 2020. We lost a couple games in 2019. We're off to a very strong start in 2022. And even like game results. I look at the system we're running and the fundamentals of the players we're developing, and we can say you can come here and you can be a very, very good player. I think I put a commercial into Sin the Fields a few years ago that says you could, have all the cost and work of college ultimate without the burden of postseason or bracket play. That was our sales pitch, but it's a little bit that you can come here and I promise you will become a great ultimate player. And then you can choose to go and play on a club team or a WUL or AUDL team. And you will be a 5-tool player with those organizations. And then you'll have the chance to do what you need to do, but come here and be great. And that's been a good enough pitch for a lot of the top talent in the state. And we hope to continue to build that out.
Well, looking forward to seeing BYU in action again next weekend at warm up. And we'll see if you can do it this year. To run the gauntlet of all of the games that you have to play over 2 days. But I want to turn our attention to, kind of what's going on in semi-pro in Utah right now. So you coached the Utah Wild, as you mentioned, in the Western Ultimate League. You're stepping away from that, though, as you take over the coaching responsibilities for the Salt Lake Shred, the new AUDL team. So I'd love to hear a little bit. Obviously, we had a Utah AUDL team years ago. It was kind of a disaster.
Technically, yes. Technically, we had a team,
yes.
Yeah.
So tell us how things are different. And I know you were on Stall 7, our AUDL podcast, so people can go check that interview out for kind of a longer, in-depth discussion of what's going on with the AUDL team. But, you had this Utah team, it folded, and now we're back with obviously a significant degree more buy-in and like control from people who are already involved in the scene. So how are things different now? And what can this team do in 2022?
That's a great question. I would say the easiest way to frame it in the context of the Salt Lake Lions is that there is no decision that was made in context of the Salt Lake Lions. They were a team, they existed, and there's no people or players or coaches or owners or managers from that group that has been involved at all in this. And so I would say, the Salt Lake Lions matter as much as the Hammerheads or the Constitution or the Spinners do to what we're doing with Salt Lake Shred, and I respect those early pioneers that did a lot of great work and took a chance on a Craigslist ad to make it happen. I think they had the same wants and desires as us, that we want Utah to be a showcase, a destination place for, elite players to come and play and compete at the highest levels. They wanted that, and we want that. But like you said, we're a little bit better tooled right now to be successful long term. So start with the WUL and what the path that they've charted over the last couple of years. Erica Bindis and the board have done a great job of establishing like what a professional organization looks like. They were able to recruit top talent from around the Mountain West for the 2021 season, and so you get athletes like Paige Kircher and Smitty and Lucy that were all on that 2020 roster. Just elite talent, Bert Cherry. And so, that's exciting. And then they're building, I got a pre-look at the roster that they'll be announcing in the next couple of weeks, but there will be some pretty splashy signings for that Utah Wild team. And so the trajectory is going to continue to just it's exciting. So if you're not a Wild fan yet, it's not too late to jump on the bandwagon, get the best swag with the best logo in the game, and join the hype team with me. But then
the Western Ultimate League's logos, designs, branding, top and ultimate.
I tell you what, designing and being on the group that was like trying to evaluate an AUDL logo in the context of knowing what the Utah Wild's logo was, it's like, well, we're already fighting for like a distant second place anyways. The best we can do is just not screw it up too bad. But just so much of what they're doing and their organization's doing sets the bar really high for us and encourages us, requires us to be, really good stewards of a men's pro team in the scene and respect what the community wants in here, not just in Utah, but in the Big Sky, and try to build around that. As for on-field talent, I'm lucky enough to get to be the head coach this year of this AUDL team. And we've had a really busy couple of months. We've been up and down running pre-tryout clinics and practices, or not even practices, but pre-tryout clinics and sessions to get to know the Big Sky. We've been all over the place. Obviously, you have Locksaw and Moondog that pull some of the best men's talent into the mixed division in Boise, and then you have the Powder Hogs from Salt Lake and the Killjoys from Orem and Sawtooth from Boise. And so the idea of trying to find the right 20 players from across 5 or 6 pretty equal club teams that are, good regional teams, or, us and Locksaw sort of sneaking into nationals and all that. These are good teams, but there's no one obvious, this is the center, the epicenter of the Big Sky is this one squad, And so with that, you've got, 5 or 6 different playing styles and development styles. And so I would say, our talent to fill out a roster with 20 that can compete in the West, I think is real and imminent. We're confident in that. However, it's aligning it and getting us on the same page as quickly as possible and being able to compete with, a San Diego team that has, held a consistent core and adding a lot of firepower to it. Every day I log on Twitter and I'm like, oh, dang, that's another really good player that they're putting on there. And so, watching them retool and gear up, and then, you see the talent out in Colorado and Portland and the consistency of these other, we like that we're in the West. It's going to be very difficult, but also I think we have the talent to compete from day one. It's just a matter of, can we get on the same page as quick as possible? So that's my job and that's my task as a coach. And I think I'm up to it, just really trying to make sure that we, get it aligned so that we don't have any unforced errors or don't have any, blown coverage assignments because we talk about something a different way or we prioritize something different. But, like you mentioned, you got the handful of players, Ben Green and Garrett Martin and Jordan and Jay Mills and now Joe, all with AUDL experience, a couple of BYU stalwarts in T-Bar and Devin Terry. We've got one of the best high school players this side of the Mississippi, and Will Selfridge, that's already signed, graduating this year. And so we're really excited about the core. We've seen the talent. We've got, a lot of athletes, 120, 130 signed up for tryouts. And again, the level of consistency there, we're really excited about. So I think we've got as good a shot as anyone. I'm confident. And, we just got done talking Sunday play, but BYU had a 0.0% chance to win the national championship. And here it might be 0.5, but as we know, that's infinitely higher. And so I'm just beyond excited that we have a legitimate pathway to go as far as our talent takes us, which is what we want. And that will play out, that hunger will play out, that excitement will play out on the field.
Quick aside, are you able to avoid all Sunday scheduling for the team?
We are in draft, 6.7 of working with our West Coast teams. And currently, yes, a big shout out to these other GMs and owners that are working. Each city, each franchise has their own priorities. The traffic of LA for a Friday night game is a big deal. And for us, the Sundays is a big deal. But I think as a whole, the league has really wanted to move away from the Sunday afternoon. Sunday afternoon, right. 11 a.m. viewership is just not what you want. You're not going to put a lot of butts in seats then. And so, if you want to engage with your fan base and elicit that excitement, I think Friday and Saturday night under the lights is where it's at. And so, yeah, currently we have a full pathway with championship weekend, Friday, Saturday, and the playoffs over a couple weekends in August. And then able to work our schedule for the 2022 season. That looks like a possibility. Obviously, it's not guaranteed moving forward, but that's our number one priority from a scheduling perspective. And so if we can accommodate everyone else's number one priorities, I hope it works out long term.
I feel like in general, we are somewhat unfamiliar with what elite or showcase play looks like within that Salt Lake and Utah area community. What can we expect from Shred and to what extent you understand the Wild home games? I mean, what can we expect from the response of the community in that area?
It's gonna be great. We're very excited about it. I work with an organization called Ultimate Play, which is a league group that focuses on elementary and middle school, and not really like the USA Ultimate, get them on teams and prep them, but this is just straight up recreation. This is like signing up at your Parks and Rec and coming out and playing. And so, we had a couple thousand participants last year in that. And then you look at what Utah is doing with 30 or 40 high school teams, hundreds of kids coming out to our BYU Ultimate camps, or now Ultimate Play camps and shred camps and wild camps. The youth scene will drive a lot of the decisions for our organization in terms of how we host and where we host and when we host, and connecting them. Sign up for the league and you get your free ticket, and you're part of the junior shred and junior wild, just like you'd be part of the junior jazz league or something like that. And so I think, a lot of franchises come into the youth league after they establish the elite scene. And we were sort of different in Utah. We had the youth programming, and then we said, it makes sense to add a top of the pyramid in the WUL and AUDL teams. And so for that reason, I think we're going to have a really exciting. We have what I would say is the best venue in the AUDL in Zions Bank Stadium. It's gorgeous. It's high tech. It's appropriately sized for the size of an ultimate crowd. There's no track around that field. It's gorgeous.
How many seats?
5,000. So you have 5,000 seats. You have a top-of-the-line press box and technology. They ran a lot of the Pro Lacrosse League and NWSL bubble out of that facility. And so you have something that works for NBC and ABC primetime, big production sports. And so we're really excited about like our streaming capabilities and our in-stadium, ability to push highlights and replays to the big, high-def video board in real time. The goal here is to have this be a true sporting experience. The product happens to be Ultimate and not, RSL Soccer or the Utah Jazz. And so it's in a beautiful location, located directly between Utah and Salt Lake counties. We have the youth scenes. There will be hiccups. It's expensive to rent a new stadium, but we know what we want. We want the youth to have a pro sports experience in the stand watching these teams compete. And so I think we're really bullish on what we think the Friday Night Lights experience is going to be on a Utah summer night.
It sounds amazing. Stadium sounds amazing. Video board, like that's something that really teams just do not have right now.
You got Charlie hooked. Charlie's coming to a game.
I can just imagine like what it would be like to be able to push out. I know I've done games. I've produced games in Toronto, and their stadium had a video board, and so we were just pushing our stream basically to the video board, and that was very cool, for fans, of course. So, how is there like broad acceptance of the shred? I know it's very early and it's hard to say, but we obviously have seen in some communities, particularly in Colorado, a lot of pushback to the AUDL team, even the idea of semi-pro ultimate in general. What is from your perspective, how have people responded so far to the idea of the AUDL coming to Utah?
That's a great question. I mean, I like to think that we were thoughtful in our approach to rolling this out. And, as I talked to some, we've been talking about this for a couple of years, 3-4 years, and really a year in earnest before it materialized. But I think we went about it from the perspective of we understand the imperfections and the counter arguments to accepting the AUDL. And then we talked about it in the unique context of Utah Ultimate. And, we talked about it from the youth perspective up. Right now, we had a fractured system where if you wanted to play in biasly the best system in Utah, you had to go to BYU. And that just, was of no interest to half the state's population. And B, you couldn't go to that school, or then you had the weird championship thing. And so we talked a lot about saying we have to create a pyramid that is going to encompass everybody. And I wish that were possible in the USA Ultimate structure right now, but it's not because of Sundays and because of the tenets of the LDS religion. And so we have these two competing things that are slowly not going anywhere. So maybe we need to reconsider a new top of the pyramid. And so, we approached it and communicated from the perspective, we want to give opportunities for athletes to grow and then stay in Utah and not have to export if they want to play at the highest level. And again, we understand the counter arguments or the concerns, but if we have the WUL, if we have the AUDL, this gives those athletes time and stay here and move your career here, or keep your career here and stay in college here, and let's get you to the highest stage and the brightest lights. And that's how we approached it. And we mean that. I mean that. I feel like I can say that I've tried everything. I've expended every ounce of social capital I have to create a championship pathway for Utah athletes and teams. And so I think that got us a lot of leadway and buy-in, that they want a unified Utah scene. They want these high school kids to have a chance to stay and play at the highest levels, and to watch that and see that and have those resources then spread out back to the youth and reinvest in the youth scene even broader and even better. At the end of the WUL weekend, we had a nice team meeting with those wild athletes, and one of them spoke up, and essentially the line was, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And her point was, the WUL and AUDL franchises should work together as much as possible. And the opportunities that those like mixed Idaho and Montana athletes were getting with the Wild, they wanted for their male counterparts on those teams as well, because it does highlight our very unique and very exciting and very community driven teams in the mixed and men's and women's division. And so, a couple of those conversations stick out to me that tell me we're going to be all right. I am and have invested a lot of my time and energy in the women's scene. And I think, knowing that is a priority for us as an AUDL team to continue to have those scenes grow together, both with financial contributions and time, talent, resource allocation considerations. I think we can do it. We have a really successful game plan in place. We have the emphasis on the youth that unifies all of us in place. This has never been about another, just creating another opportunity for men's team. This is a chance to really bring together the scene in a meaningful way that we haven't had in, the 10 or 15 years I've been involved here.
Okay. So quick hot take section here.
I'm all for it.
You've coached in USAU for a long time. You've coached in the Western Ultimate League. You're very aware, I'm sure, of the AUDL rules. And I imagine you've been thinking about what kinds of stuff you want to do given the rule set there. What are your thoughts on the optimal rules for Ultimate? Maybe there's differences across the domains, but
no, I'm going to cut you off right there. It's the WUL. It's not close. The speed of play, the 40-yard field, I would maybe allow double teams. I think that's an exciting thing, but the WUL has it right, and everyone needs to catch up quick. It is so fast-paced. It's so clean. It's a beautiful mix of self-officiated and observed, and the 40-yard field's where it at. The WUL rule set is the rule set that everyone else needs to get behind.
Do you think are you going to advocate for changes towards that direction in the AUDL?
I'm a rookie coach right now, so I'll keep my mouth shut until I got at least 1 or 2 wins under my belt. We've improved on the Salt Lake Lions record, but I think as stadiums become more adaptable and allow us to move to the 40-yard field, that's where I'd advocate first. And that quick stall, that 5.5 seconds, it's technically a 7 stall, but it's player initiated. It's 4.5, 5 seconds. It's so fast, and the game moves beautifully. If anyone listening, just go watch those WUL rules, look at what their rule committee built, and do what you can to advocate for that at every level. Maybe not the youth, but every other level of the game.
I'll tell you what, as a video producer, the time between points in the Western Ultimate League, it is so much better than club. It's just not even in the same ballpark. And the AUDL moves even faster, but it sometimes it almost feels a little too fast because you have a hard time getting replays in. I'm obviously thinking about it from the media side. Yes, I was very impressed with the pace of play at the Winter Cup. So looking forward to seeing more of that.
And tell you what, too, those games and those roster sizes, having a roster of 16 to 18 was like the most refreshing thing, coming from like the college where you have to carry, not have to, but you carry a big roster and you tell a lot of people no, like the size of the roster for the number of games and the length of the game from a coaching perspective was an absolute dream. It was so easy to focus on actual Ultimate.
Who are the most promising rookies on BYU right now?
I know there's a lot of attention for Porter Euler, but I've got to shout out a couple others. Chad Jorgensen is going to be an absolute issue. His speed, and he's, immediately on the O-line, he's playing well. One of our handlers, Jensen Wells, had some massive plays this past weekend. And then I got to give a shout out to the Miller triplets. Coming up, we have 5 Millers and 2 Merrills on the team, but the Miller triplets I think are going to be really exciting. There's 15 of them. Each one of them does something very unique or very well, and that's why they're on the roster. But the top end talent is going to be a problem for the college division for years to come.
So they're all siblings, the Millers.
4 of the 5. 4 of the 5. 4 of the 5.
No team gets more out of fewer total names than BYU.
We've got a couple of bloodlines that we're very interested in, so it's perfect. Yeah.
Most impressive players you saw this weekend, not on BYU.
Oh, KJ is in a field of his own right now. He should be moved to a Pody short list. Very, very impressive. Discipline on the disc was also very impressive. RKD, Riley Kirkman Davis, gave us a lot of issues, and we were sort of prepared for him downfield, but he gave us troubles on a couple of our early sets of just painting in a couple of, he had a flick blade across our, sort of our pre-switch scrammy defense that, we weren't ready for that. Typically we know if KJ's got it, we've got to back off and contain for a little bit, but he had a couple, 2 full field, 1 throw scores and another blade all the way across the field. That was really impressive. Aroy slotted in great with Cal, and I thought gave them a layer of dynamic play that we maybe hadn't seen them from them the last couple times we played them. And so again, I was really impressed. We knew Slow would be an awesome game, but really impressed with the entire UCLA and Cal teams and sort of where they're at developmentally right now. And they played really, really well.
How do you get the team ready for is it 7 games you're playing across 2 days?
We don't know yet, but I'd assume 7 or 8 games. Yeah.
I think I've seen the schedule. So how do you get them ready for that? Especially coming off this weekend.
Yeah, we canceled most of our practices. We had a lift on Monday and Wednesday just to get the body moving, and 1 practice tomorrow. But really, we have our game plan. We know what we're doing, and so I think a lot of it is we'll have the jitters out of the way, and we'll be ready to just sort of run our stuff. And so we'll take it a game at a time. That's sort of our inside joke, leadership talk, and we're all in on this half. And so we'll take it 1 half at a time and game plan and go from there. And I really expect the depth of our bench, players 15 to 25, to be able to keep us fresh for when we need to, run a little bit tighter or something like that. And so the consistency of each one of our players will make it a lot easier than in years past.
What does the emergence of the AUDL team mean for Club Ultimate in Utah?
We're all in together. And so the Orem Killjoys leadership has sort of ceded full control to the Salt Lake Shred in terms of schedule and rosters and leadership and roster selection and everything like that. And so, obviously there's some deep loyalty to some of these mixed teams in the Big Sky, and we plan to support the players that want to stay there, but we're hoping everyone else that makes this Shred roster, and then even some of those practice players are able to fill out that Killjoys roster. And so you'll have some of the same systems and, an aligned schedule that splits AUDL weekends and USA Ultimate Club weekends so that we're able to sort of work together and not, we have a finite talent pool compared to some of these other cities. You consider that. And so it's in a sense, an essential thing for us to have everyone on the same page.
Bryce, this has been really great. Thank you so much for giving us some of your time, and I'll see you down in Tampa.
Hey, that sounds great. We'll see you then. Thanks for letting me come on today, y'all.
Bryce Merrill with us here on Deep Look. We'll be right back.
Hello, Ultimate coaches and captains. This is Melissa Whitmer of the Ultimate Athlete Project, and this is your official invitation to the 2022 UAP Coaching Conference. At this year's conference, you can expect to hear from speakers from all over the world, as usual. This year, we've got coaches representing Colombia, Venezuela, Australia, the United States, Canada, Japan, Egypt, and perhaps some others. We're going to cover topics from how to gamify your practices to how to build a more equitable equitable global ultimate community. So whether you are a new coach who needs all the help you can get, or a seasoned coach who's on the lookout for any pieces of new information and new perspectives you can acquire, this is the place to get that. The UAP Coaching Conference is like nothing else. So best part, the conference is free to attend live, or for just $19 a month, you can get access to all of the conference recordings from the past 10 years. So you can learn more about those options and sign up for free for the conference at theuap.com. That's THEUAP.com. I will see you online there.
Welcome back to Deep Look. Really just fantastic to talk with Bryce Merrill, and really appreciate his insight. I have fairly high expectations for what this new AUDL team could do. I think they're going to be competitive in the division, and I also think that they have a good chance to be one of the better attended teams in the league. We could see really good attendance from them, not just because of the stadium. I think that there's just a culture there of like not only the large youth population, but people like want to go and watch the ultimate games. So I think there's been a lot of foundation set up over the last decade that's going to allow them to do well. We'll see how it goes.
And I think it'll be a rare connective point for the Utah community and the greater ultimate community at large. Like, I feel like Utah only exports ultimate. Like, their teams travel out and then they come back. And there's not a lot of, transients between players. There aren't a lot of players who move into the Utah scene and then come back out, or who play there for a couple of years, or vice versa. So I feel like it's a little mysterious. So it'll be cool to have that kind of connection with the community at large there and get a better sense of what it's like. I did want to ask, because this raised an interesting question to me, our conversation with Bryce. You mentioned Toronto and the video board, but if you're stepping back from the media standpoint, what is the premier venue for semi-pro ultimate right now? My first instinct is Bree Stevens, but where is it?
Bree Stevens is good. I really like where the DC Breeze play.
Mm-hmm.
Of stadiums that I visited in 2021, I think that was probably my favorite. It has they've got nice concession stand, like a very cool, like the concession stand and the bathrooms and stuff are up on like a almost like a mesa that looks down over the field. So you could sit up there and watch the game while having a beer. Or you can go out to the stadium. Now, it's, it doesn't have like a big video board and stuff, but it's got like nice dedicated parking, good amenities, the right size stadium. Like it's like almost too small. Like they're almost at the point where like they don't have enough seats. But like selling out games is better than having cavernous, empty stadiums. So that was one of my favorites. I think Bree Stevens is good similarly because they are able to mostly fill it up. And it's so close to like the heart of Madison.
And they also have a big, like a standing deck, right, where you can actually watch. I think it's a part of the restaurant that's at the other end of the field.
Yeah, I think that's right. They have like the wraparound stands. I did not go to a Madison game in 2021, so I can't speak to what it looks like these days because I think they've like recently done work on the stadium. And Montreal, obviously has kind of been they had the little Canada Cup thing, but their stadium is nice. Unsurprisingly, like the teams that do pretty well with attendance have the better stadiums.
Remember when the Mechanics played in the Pontiac Silverdome?
Did they play regular season games there? I know that the first AUDL championship was held there.
Yeah.
In the decrepit ruins of the Silverdome.
You want to use the word cavernous? Like there is no better word besides maybe empty than the Silverdome, but it echoes. So it's like, what a weird thing.
Well, let's turn our attention now to the college division and quickly break down the big results from this weekend. Carolina Kickoff happened out east. It's not on Score Reporter. Not that it really matters. The games don't count in the rankings, of course, but UNC Darkside winning that tournament over North Carolina State. Shout out to Georgetown, who got a win over NC State first thing on Saturday. Ended up having a pretty nice weekend. So a team to keep an eye on there. Tough conditions. They were literally plowing snow off the fields before games.
But that is not uncommon at Carolina Kickoff, I don't think.
uncommon.
I mean, we've seen other snowy years, but
that's what you get with January games.
I heard good things about Duke too. So another we could be looking at another year of a number of potential challengers in the Atlantic Coast vying for second place.
How many bids? Like, obviously it's impossible to know what the bid situation is going to be this season because we literally don't know what they're going to do for how to allocate bids. But it feels like it could be a 4-bid region. It's not crazy. So we'll see. And I was out in California for the Santa Barbara invite, a little smaller than usual, but a nice way to take in games because they did not have a bracket format. It was just scheduled play. They also kind of had like A and B sessions where there was teams that played in the morning and other teams played in the afternoon. So like on Sunday, the men's games and the women's games did not cross over at all. So you could just watch men's games in the morning, women's games in the afternoon. So a nice way to kind of get a look at a lot of teams. And though there was no explicitly named champion, BYU went undefeated and clearly looked like the winner on the men's side. And on the women's side, UCSB went undefeated and got wins over both of the teams that finished behind them. UCSD went 5-1, BYU went 3-2. So clearly the winner on that side. And so I thought it might be nice, Keith, why don't you ask me questions about the weekend, and I'll try to do my best to answer them.
Well, we talked with Bryce Merrill quite a bit about the men's side and a little bit about the women's side, but let's talk about the women's division first then. So Santa Barbara, they go undefeated, like you mentioned. They finish on top. Did they look like cleanly the best team there? I mean, they lost some key pieces, so this will give us a sense of where they are going into the spring.
Well, one thing I'll say right off the top is that it's a little bit difficult to evaluate just how good teams are because rotations were more open than normal because of the lack of rankings. So where you might see teams stacking lines in certain games, that wasn't necessarily happening. So it's hard to get a sense of like exactly, how much better a team is than another when it's like, the point is more about development, right? I think we should think about this first part of the season as a little bit of a preseason because there is going to be that approach, at least from some teams. So to speak about UCSB, yes, definitely the best team at the tournament. No doubt about that. I think they have to be considered the front runner in the Southwest. They lose two big names that people are going to focus on, and rightfully so. Caitlin Weaver, Jasmine Childress, both not returning. Caitlin Weaver's on the sideline coaching, and they looked good. But I think that in general, I feel like across the board, the Southwest team quality has dipped a little bit as we've seen some of these key departures from the talent that we saw, playing in the fall series. So I thought that they were strong. I mean, still very athletic. A team that likes to shoot deep early and often. I thought they got a lot of, just impressive play out of a lot of players on the roster. I think obviously people will focus on Elsa Winslow. I do think she's probably their best player. But the player that I was most impressed with that I hadn't heard about and is just a rookie is Devin Quinn. She comes over from the East Coast and tall, cutter, saw multiple layout Ds, big scores, both layouts and skies. We're talking about somebody who could be like the top 3 player on their team and is just a rookie. This is an enormous pickup for UCSB, and I think that they're clearly a really good team, but the overall quality of the team has dipped a little bit with some of the big losses.
I'm curious. We talked a little bit about this last week. That I theorize that we may see that across the country, though. So it may be a wash by the end. I mean, I think that maybe aside from UNC, a lot of teams are going to be taking a step back because they're simply going to have less talent and experience than they did in the fall. And it sounds like that was the case across the board here. Although there's one team that did pretty well that we didn't get to see in the fall at all, which is BYU. How good is this BYU team? On paper, the results don't scream to you, but they lose by 1 to UCSD, they lose by 2 to UC Santa Barbara, they beat UCLA handily. How good is this BYU team right now?
I mean, they crushed Cal Poly SLO 15-5, crushed them, and that's a team that's been to nationals and has been in the conversation in the Southwest. They are very good. They are very good. I think they are 1 to 2 years away from being a top 5 team. And I really don't think that's overstating it. Every single year that we see them at SBI, they have taken steps forward as a team. So for some context, they were up against UCSB throughout much of the first half of the game in their Friday night first game of the season, basically showcase, and then coughed up a lead late. And, I think credit to UCSB for that. The defense tightened up. They were a little bit more efficient with their disc after the turnover. They should have beaten UCSD straight up. They took half, I think 8-7, and then gave up, I think 3 in a row to UCSD out of half. But I also think that a little bit you're seeing the difference between, a team that's really been at this level and that is learning to get to that level. And I think we saw BYU when other teams tightened lines, tightened the screws defensively, didn't necessarily have what it took to close out those games. But I think they were definitely the third best team there. I think they're clearly a top 25 program. They have a number of impressive players. I think a name that people probably already know at least a little bit is Sailor Ong. She was very good. I was impressed. I'm taking a look at my notes. Lauren Hall was mostly on their D-line, kind of their D-line center handler, then ended up playing offense later in the weekend. I think just very steady backfield presence. Excellent inside breaks. Easy to reset to because she's very tall. I thought she was one of the better players on the weekend. And, they have just talent down the line. Maddie Kerr, Maddie Paskett, both looking very impressive downfield. I'd have to go through their roster if I wanted to pick out more names, but I was just generally impressed with what they brought to the game. Kate Berry, probably their best player. And again, I just think that you're looking at a team that in a year or two we're going to be talking about, like we talk about the men's team, as is this a number 1 team in the country type team? With UNC, I mean, maybe we'll never get there, but I certainly think this is a program that's on the sharp rise.
Kate Berry could be a key part of that. If I'm not mistaken, I think she's still a freshman. I think she's a first-year player. So if she is, she would be a potential Rookie of the Year shortlister.
No question. Great defender. Drives the offense after the turn. Played mostly offense, I think, just on the weekend. But, there are a lot of turnovers still. They're still figuring it out. They still have players out there who are not super comfortable with the disc, and we saw that across the division.
It's still, to me, very bold to claim they're going to be a top 5 team, given that we've never really seen them make a push for being in the nationals tier, even if they wouldn't be able to go. You know what I mean? We've never seen them be that good. So that is a sharp rise.
Listen,
but it's a good sign that, I think depth has been potentially one of their issues. They haven't been able to cultivate disc skill across the whole team over the past few years. So if you're seeing a team that looks a little more deep, where you got to read down the roster to get to all the good players, that's a good sign for them.
I mean, and again, they're playing within 1 to 2 goals of teams that are in our top 5 right now. I don't know what more you need to see. Well, I think they're still a step away. I think I don't know where exactly you slot them in. Probably in the 10 to 15 range right now, 10 to 20. But I'm telling you, with the youth talent that exists in Utah, combined with the fact that they have some of their biggest playmakers as underclassmen, I really think that this team is going to be a very formidable program in the next 2 years.
Well, the other team I want to ask about, and maybe a team that could be headed in the other direction, UCLA. They don't make nationals in the fall. I think that was a bit of a disappointment. Then, they come out to this tournament, early season. They have some good results, but even their best results are good losses, I would say. What's your take on UCLA? Do they look like a nationals quality team right now, or should we be concerned?
It's hard to say. I think they, compared to some other teams, maybe were substituting a little bit more openly. You look at their results. They lose by 7 to BYU, by 1 to UCSB, by 3 to UCSD. I definitely think they're a step behind those two teams in the Southwest in front of them. It does seem to me like they have some developing to do. I was impressed with Anna Reed's play, a D-line handler for them, very strong. Their offensive line looked worse to me on offense than their D-line offense. And that is a little concerning, but I also think it's the sign that, there's a lot of development to do there. I was surprised that we didn't see more Anna Reed on offense. I'll just put it that way.
Interesting. They're a team that I was pretty high on coming into the fall, and yeah, now I feel like my stock is losing value.
It's hard to say this early. I mean, I think teams, if they tighten up lines, that's a team that probably wins a couple more games this weekend.
Well, like you said earlier, we don't know how the bid stuff is going to shake out. So in the same way the AC, the AC men's may deserve 4 bids, but have to settle for 2 or something. Who knows what's going to happen in the Southwest? We just don't know right now what the bid picture is going to look like or how they're going to be assigned. So it could work out in their favor, or it could work out poorly for them. Most of the Southwest, I feel like their big time tournaments tend to happen earlier in the year, and that really floats those Southwest teams to the top early. But I don't know what that's going to do to their the schedule being shifted, how that's going to impact them.
Sure.
The only major team that we didn't talk about, UC San Diego, was Ava Hanna the best player at this tournament in the women's division?
It's not even close. It was not even close. Like, I think in their game, let me pull up the game list for them. I mean, she was everywhere for this team. Anchor in the deep space in the zone, just absolutely dominating. I think it was the game against UCLA. They win 9-6. I think she scored or assisted every goal.
Wow.
I could be wrong by like 1, but I mean, unbelievable. It would be like, gets the block, throws a first throw goal, huck, or gets it, throws it, strike cut, score. Like, unstoppable out there. And let me give you this. This is a little nugget from the weekend. She got hurt in the game against USC, their last game of the weekend. They were blanking the team. I think it was 12-0. Okay. And she gets hurt. A collision with another player, injured her groin. She actually might miss some time. I think probably going to be out for a couple weeks. I'd probably say a question mark for Pres Day. USC proceeded to score 5 straight goals after not scoring the entire game. That is how important she was to what the team was doing. Okay. There's some nice other players on the team for sure, but they just don't have the throwers without her on the field. Now, her sister Lauren was not playing. That will be a big addition when she comes back. They are very reliant, though, on Ava right now. And I think, she's easy front runner, like player of the year out of the region right now.
That felt like the case at nationals. I mean, I would not be surprised. We just had our All-American first and second teams announced. Ava was not on it, but I would not be surprised to see her in our subscriber only subs, the snubs article. I would not be surprised to see her on somebody's snubs list, and certainly on some third teams. She was just on the borderline, in my opinion, and they did seem pretty reliant on her, as well as Abby Schultz, who
Abby Schultz was excellent.
I will be writing a snub about. It was a snub that she did not win Rookie of the Year. To me, she was the best rookie in fall 2021. So
she was very impressive this weekend as well. I think clearly their second best player.
All right, let's move over to the men's division then, and start at the top. BYU, we got a little bit of a sense of where they were at from your conversation with Bryce, but what were your takeaways? How did they look at the top end particularly? What's the long term outlook for this team? Do you think?
Oh, I mean, this could be the number one team. I mean, I don't put them there now. I think you have to look at UNC still as the favorite right now. Maybe they're number 3 behind Georgia, but it's close. As we discussed with Bryce, thought they looked a little unpolished, but I think he's probably right when he says that their ceiling is higher and that they're just kind of working out how they want to run the offense a little bit, particularly on the D line. But look, Jordan Kerr just makes offense look easy. They just go out there and shred teams. And there's no team in the division that is better about getting blocks on like 50-50 / bad decisions from the other team. Every single time you saw teams throw up floaters, BYU got the block. I mean, it's just relentless in the deep space with multiple players able to go up and get those blocks. And then they're just a very disciplined team. They've always had great fundamentals with throws. They hit the inside breaks extremely well. And just, they're a great team. It's that simple. Like Cal Poly Slow looked head and shoulders above everybody else in this tournament, and they lost to BYU. That's how good BYU is. And Cal Poly Slow is probably a top 10 team right now.
That kind of takes me right to what I want to ask next, which is about this Slow team. Bryce shouted out KJ Koo. What's the rest that we know what KJ can do? We know how good he is, but you and I, when we talked about this team, when we were talking about the power rankings, we're kind of like looking down the roster to find who else is going to be a big contributor. Did anybody step up for them? Is this a team that you think is going to push forward, or should we expect them to take a step back?
Well, it's interesting because what's happened is that the rest of the Southwest is getting better around them. Mm-hmm. I was talking with Alex Rubin, who's there with Old World reporting on the men's division. He watched more of the games than I did. And I said to him, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that Slow is going to win the region. I think that particularly Cal has a chance to play spoiler. I think that the region probably deserves 2 bids this year, possibly 3. I mean, UCLA and Cal both looked impressive. Slow was very, they were not stacking lines for the most part. So in games that looked closer, they could have won by more by playing tighter lines, but they got a lot of reps in for a relatively deep bench. I was impressed by Seamus Robinson on the D line. He was very good. KJ is just a tremendous piece on offense, no question. Trying to think about other names. I mean, here's the thing about them. They're well coached, they're disciplined, and they punish teams for making mistakes against them, right? That was one of the differences between the top teams and the next tier of teams, is that the next tier of teams would get it to the red zone and then make a bad decision in the red zone. And then, Slow would punish and BYU would punish. And I think that was really the difference for them. So I think with tighter lines, Cal Poly probably wins their games by 2 to 3 more goals in general. And so I think they're still clearly a step above the Cals and the UCLAs in the region, but they don't look quite as dangerous. I think, and I talked to some coaches and players who basically felt the same way. It was like with Calvin Brown out, having just gotten surgery on the ACL, and basically that rules him out for the series. You lose a little bit of dynamism there, and Calvin Brown does have a little bit of cut both ways because he tends to turn it over a little bit. But it's just you don't have that other huge playmaker. Will they have somebody step up into that role? I don't know. I think that their national ceiling is limited a little bit by that. Regionally, I think they're still the team to beat.
Well, you mentioned a potential challenger in Cal, and the name that kept popping up on Twitter to me is Andrew Roy. How big of a difference has he made for Cal, and how does he change their fortunes?
I mean, when you're taking a player who is a club nationals caliber handler, and you put him onto a college team where he's far and away the best player, he comes into the team and is a captain. He's the captain. He's the guy. Okay, so I mean, he's just very effective every other type college handler. And it's a different role. I was talking to him a little on the sideline, and he's like, I've been playing in system teams where like I have a job. I am the reset handler. And here it's like, give me the rock. And he makes the tough throws and he touches the disc a lot. And they're still working out the kinks, but he definitely adds a lot of, sort of explosive motion to their offense with also the combined ability to hit tough throws. And that's a dangerous combination because he's coming into a team that has good players. You know, they're a legit team. Max Williams was very impressive. One of the better players on the weekend. And I think, you look at their games, right? They comfortably beat Wash U, Santa Cruz, Colorado State. They beat UCLA by 1 on Universe in probably the game of the weekend. Probably a preview of the game to go, if I had to guess, in the Southwest. And they drop a game to Utah that they shouldn't have lost. They blew a lead, and they lose by 2 to BYU. A lot of their issues stemmed from little execution problems, drops, weird throws, stuff that was like fine in the flow of the offense. Like it would be like quick give and go, and then Andrew Roy would throw it to somebody and they would drop it right in zone. And so if they can work that stuff out, which I think that they can because it wasn't structurally wrong, then they're going to be a very good team.
Okay, well, you're basically doing the segues for me. I mean, you brought up the team that I wanted to ask about next, which is Utah. That win over Cal is pretty interesting. They also beat UC Santa Barbara. They played a close game, a moderately close game. What do we think of as 3 goals? 3 goals could feel like if you watch the tape, 3 goals could be close, or it could feel like that game was tight. Close game.
That game was really tight with Cal Poly.
Now they played a less close game with Cal Poly too, but being able, even having the ceiling to play a close game with Cal Poly slow is a good sign for Utah in what's usually a pretty competitive Northwest. How do they look to you? Are they surprising to you? Do you think they have some chops?
They have chops. They are one of the most Huck-happy teams I've seen in a while in the college division. They just bomb it over and over and over again, and they hit those a lot, even against really good teams. I mean, they were hitting early against Cal Poly, and they were in that game all the way through the early part of the second half. Austin Hasbrook, very impressive. Nathan Huff, very good. They, I think, struggle more when they're forced to work under and have to be disciplined in the red zone. That was where they tended to cough it up. So if you can limit them deep, then you've got a good chance to slow them down. But I think these results speak for themselves. I think they probably got a little tired late in the weekend. They ended up losing by 3 to UCLA, but UCLA is a more disciplined team. I think that, where do they fit in is the question. Like, can they get out of the Northwest? It's tough because you've got to deal with Washington. You got to deal with Oregon. You also have, the Utah State type teams, Western Washington type teams. Who knows what's going on with the Canadian teams? The problem is it's crowded. Yeah. And I think they're good, but I also think that right now they're a little bit one-dimensional. That dimension is strong, but they're going to have to do more than just be able to hit the deep shots if they want to come out of the region.
Very, very intriguing stuff. Not a lot of simple answers, I think, across the board, and especially without knowing the big picture, because it feels like a lot of these teams are bubble teams, that could be around that area. And we, in the women's division, there's a little bit of the Southwest narrative. How strong is the Southwest? No Davis there, but UC Santa Barbara, UCSD, UCLA are there to kind of set the pace for the region. So, it could be a little bit of down-tiders that going to be true across the division. Where's the Southwest going to stand? So some definitely interesting storylines to keep an eye on. It could be a little while though, before we really get a lot of clarity.
Definitely. I know just the other team to talk about here, I think, is UCLA. They lose by 2 to BYU. They lose handily to Cal Poly, and they lose by 1 in that universe point game with Cal. Riley Kirkman Davis is just unbelievable. I mean, there's a reason that Bryce Merrill brought him up. It's the same kind of thing. Like if you take him off the team, they're middling at best. And not to say that they don't have other good players, but he's a key to what they do. He hits the hard throws. He's a great decision maker with the disc. Certainly a player of the year candidate, I think, coming out of this weekend. One of the most impressive players on the weekend. And I'm excited to see what they can do. I know that they have high expectations for what's possible. Because, you're able to build around this super player. And, I think the big question for them is, can they develop the cutters they need? They're one elite cutter away from being like a quarterfinals nationals team, potentially. They did not have that. I did not see that. They need to figure out who they can develop into that role.
Yeah, Kirkman Davis can do it all except throw it to himself. I mean, he's also a great defender. I don't know how much that is minimized by his offensive workload, but he certainly in the club scene, he showed he could play defense on top level players.
He's going to be one of those guys that plays every key point at regionals.
Absolutely.
So besides, those were clearly the teams that stood out to me, Keith, over the course of the weekend. I think, the other team that showed up and, Santa Cruz went 3-0 in their power pool on Sunday, beating Santa Barbara, Wash U, and Chicago. But they were definitely a step behind the top teams. We didn't even really get a chance to see them. They lost 15-8 to Cal. So there was like a very obvious top four and then a big drop off after that.
Colorado State kind of laid an egg, huh?
Yeah, just a terrible day on Saturday.
I don't know if you even got to see them because they were
a little bit
taking L's.
Yeah, it's rebuild time for them.
Yeah.
Yep. So let's. Any other questions before we move on to warm up?
No, let's do it. Let's talk a little warm up. That was a good warm up for warm up.
Well, it's an interesting tournament this year. A few drops. Cut, Wisco, I think Tufts, and one other team I'm forgetting dropped. Cincinnati dropped out after initially saying they were going to go. So it's a little bit of a thinner field as a result, particularly losing Cut. So
what's particularly annoying to me is given that two of those teams we really would like to see, since we didn't get to see that much of them in 2021.
I know. BYU has 8 games. And remember, in 2020, they won 7 straight, and they lost their last game to Brown on Universe 11-10. Well, they get to play Brown again, and that's probably the game that they'll need to win if they want to have. Obviously, they need to win all their games to go undefeated, but that's the hardest game that they have. I think they also play Pitt. Hard to know what we're going to get from Pitt after kind of a clunky fall for them. So we'll see what that turns out. But I think, BYU's certainly got a chance to win all 8 games. It's tough though. That's a lot of games on the legs, especially having played this weekend. So that's going to be a fun story to watch. I think the other stuff, Keith, just exciting to get a look at some of these teams that we haven't seen that much of. How does Tufts look? How does Minnesota look? Right, teams.
Well, not Tufts.
oh, sorry, I forgot. No Tufts. We'll get Northeastern, and we'll get Brown. I'm very excited to see Minnesota because they've got some 7th years basically, and so how good is that team going to be? This is going to be a real test weekend for them. So typical Florida warm up format: match play games leading up into brackets that start this year late on Saturday and then continue on Sunday.
Pittsburgh, with Carlton out of the field, Pittsburgh's the team I'm the most interested in seeing, to be honest with you. I got to know where Pittsburgh's head's at going into the season. They don't have an easy schedule. I don't think they wanted one. They get UMass, they get BYU, I believe. They get Auburn, could be a tough one. The Southeast is kind of a sub story here. Is how good is the Southeast going to be? So we'll also get a measure of that. But Pittsburgh's the team I think I'm the most intrigued by seeing. Also interesting that the Temple, fellow Ohio Valley team, who had a lot of chirping to do after regionals, after not making nationals. This is
the best tournament for challenger teams to show up and prove a point.
It really is.
Temple's got the chance. I think we're going to get them on film in 2 games this weekend, potentially, and that not including the bracket. So here's their schedule. They've got Florida, Georgia State, Minnesota, Northeastern, A&M, and USF. There's some games that I think you can chalk up as wins. There's also some challenge games, and then some games that you probably look at them probably losing. But it is, besides Minnesota, it is a schedule that feels like they could get a lot of wins. This is a team that's, for me, they have to make the bracket for me to take them seriously as a nationals contending type team. But I think they have that chance.
So if I'm taking Pittsburgh as the most interesting team, unless it's BYU, who's the team you're like, I got to see what they have?
Well, Temple for sure is on the list.
Interesting.
I think Minnesota's on the list. I am also very interested to see what we get from like FSU, Florida, UCF, like
that. The corridor.
I always
of
feel like
Southeast
I come in because we know Georgia is clearly the class of the region. Who's that? Who's next? Is there another team that belongs in the national conversation? I don't know.
It's unfortunate that Tulane's not going to be there. I think they were initially intended to be there, but they seem like they might be another drop now that I'm looking at the schedule.
Yeah, not going to be there. I mean, we'll get LSU, and UCF. That's a team that year to year seems very inconsistent to me. Like they'll look bad one season and then they'll come back the next season and be like a challenging team. So I always look forward to seeing them. I'm kind of bummed we won't get the big like Florida Wisconsin game that we typically get and some of the fun matchups with Cut. But it still should be a great weekend, and just love the format. It's my favorite tournament on the calendar.
Understandable. Hopefully we'll get some great games because we have a history of getting some really, really fantastic stuff from this tournament.
How about Illinois, Keith? Another interesting team.
Eli Artemekis
just went to nationals. Like, are they for real? They get some tough games on their schedule. BYU, Minnesota, Pitt. So they're that like pretty good team that has the really hard schedule, and they might miss the bracket. But
or they go out and they get a signature win or two.
That's right.
And suddenly you're creeping into the top 15 or whatever on the power rankings.
That's right. But it should be fun. Obviously, we'll be there reporting and filming a ton of games. I think we'll have probably 15-ish games at least from the weekend. So looking forward to seeing what these teams have to offer. So that is going to do it for today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. And make sure you sign up for our subscription so you can check out the subscriber bonus segment. I don't want to tease it here. I think what we're going to be doing is talking with Jana Hamaker who's the head of the rules committee at USA Ultimate about kind of the plan, like the decisions around how they change the rules here in 2022, what we're going to see from the rules committee going forward, how they're going to work on trying to develop new rules, experimentation, and all of that. So that's the plan. It's not fully confirmed, so if we switch it up, you'll be the first to know as a subscriber. So check it out, ultiworld.com/subscribe. For Keith Raynor, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long, and so long to the 49ers on this week's edition of Deep Look.